Is he controlling? Yes, he is. Will he put his hands on a female? Yes, he will. Would he put his hands on a male producer or anything? Yes, he will. I know those things about him.
Former artist and P. Diddy collaborator Mark Curry tells all in the wake of shocking allegations against the famed rapper.
Puff doesn't have to force anyone to do anything because it's enough people who would just do anything just to be associated with him. So to be affiliated with him. So his life is so easy.
And he doesn't hold back.
To me, he's a person with no empathy, and he doesn't feel as if he has to answer to anything in life because, the power of money sometimes make people they feel powerful because they are able and they have money.
Before we dig into Mark's story, let's start with Sean Combs, the 54-year-old rapper, label exec, and producer known by multiple different names like P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, or Puff. All those names have swept the headlines this week as federal investigators raided two of Diddy's homes, one in Holmby Hills in California and the other on Star Island in Miami. We know Homeland Security was involved in these raids, but we don't know for sure that Diddy was even the target of the investigations, and so far he hasn't been charged. All of these allegations about Diddy come from a handful of lawsuits, which we've reported on several times. First, there's that bombshell lawsuit from last November when Cassie Ventura filed against Diddy. You probably know her as the singer Cassie. She dated Diddy for years, and in the lawsuit, she alleged Diddy raped her, beat her, forced her to have sex with prostitutes, and even forced her to carry a gun. The lawsuit was settled out of court just one day after it was filed through New York's Adult Survivors Act. That act meant for 1 year, between November 2022 and November 2023, survivors could file lawsuits against their alleged predators, even if the statute of limitations had passed. That's where another lawsuit comes into play for Diddy, this time filed by Joy Dickerson Neal. Her allegations date back to 1991, when she was in college at Syracuse University. Joy says Diddy drugged her, sexually assaulted her, and recorded it. After that, he passed that videotape around to other people in the music industry. At the time the lawsuit was filed, Diddy's rep called it a money grab. Another bombshell lawsuit was filed last month, and this was a big one. Rodney Jones, also known as Lil Rod, filed a nearly 100-page civil lawsuit against Diddy and several other plaintiffs, specifically calling out Diddy for sexual assault. We spoke with former homicide prosecutor Bernarda Villalona about the suit. Let's talk about that most recent civil lawsuit filed by Lil Rod or Rodney Jones. Throughout that, he makes several crazy allegations, names several celebrities, a lot of bombshells are revealed. What did you make of all of that?
Whew. I'm sure that those people that are named in that lawsuit are very nervous right now. Very nervous, even more nervous now after the execution of that search warrant, but also nervous because he revealed about these secret recordings and they're wondering whether they could have been secretly recorded. Are there recordings of them engaging in these type of activities? Because even though it may not be criminal, some of those activities, it still does tarnish their image. So they can still take a toll in terms of their branding. But in terms of the lawsuit itself, it's very damaging. You got to think that several companies have already distanced themselves from Puffy and there haven't been any criminal charges. All you see is a civil lawsuit. So I think there's still going to be more things that are going to come about as a result of that civil lawsuit. But I think the most damaging, again, is Cassie's lawsuit. But more importantly, I think is Little Rod's lawsuit that was filed.
In the suit, Lil Rod makes several gasp-worthy claims, listing celebrities who would be around Combs, such as his ex Jennifer Lopez and Prince Harry. While no wrongdoing is alleged against them, Lil Rod leveled some serious accusations at Cuba Gooding Jr. In the case of Cuba, Lil Rod alleges Diddy was, quote, grooming him to pass him off to his friends. This fear became reality when Mr. Combs introduced Mr. Jones, that's Lil Rod, to Cuba Gooding Jr. while they were on Mr. Combs' yacht. There's actually photos of their interaction together too, which are laid out in those court docs. You can see one pic of Diddy and Cuba together, but the other may be more telling. It shows Cuba with his arm around Lil Rod. Court docs go on to state, quote, Cuba Gooding Jr. began touching, groping, and fondling Mr. Jones's legs, his upper inner thighs near his groin, the small of his back near his buttocks, and his shoulders. It was only when Lil Rod pushed Cuba away that he stopped. Former prosecutor Melba Pearson says this one could be hard for Cuba to deny.
I'm getting the feeling where there's smoke, there's fire, right? Because now we have two different instances where you're accused of the same type of behavior, years apart. I think there's something there. And I don't know that Cuba Gooding Jr. is going to escape from that one because he already saw definitely people moving away from him within Hollywood circles and other circles once those first sexual assault allegations came out. So at this point, I don't think he's going to get away with it a second time.
In 2019, Cuba was booked on misdemeanor charges of forcible touching and sexual abuse after allegedly groping a woman in Times Square. By the next year, 3 women had come forward accusing him of non-consensual sexual touching. He eventually reached a deal with prosecutors that required 6 months of counseling but no jail time.
Last couple of years, there were allegations against him for sexual assault. So now we had those prior allegations, and now we see him tied to this case as allegedly trying to, assault a Lil Rod, assault others.
Then there's the matter of Jennifer Lopez, who is listed in Lil Rod's civil suit as a way to establish Diddy's history. The suit reads, quote, Diddy's RICO enterprise has existed for at least 20 years, dating back to the 1999 nightclub shooting in NYC, when Mr. Combs required his then-girlfriend Jennifer Lopez to transport his illegal firearm into the NYC nightclub. The court docs also allege Diddy forced his then-artist Shine to assume responsibility for the shooting of several individuals. The fact that she's named as somebody who was carrying a weapon, could that be incriminating for Jennifer Lopez?
It can be, but with a huge caveat, right? If I'm not mistaken, that shooting did not result in a death. I know that somebody was harmed, but I don't believe anyone was killed. Because of that, you have the statute of limitations to deal with, which is basically a prolonged amount of a certain amount of time that a prosecutor has to be able to bring charges against someone. And it varies from state to state. But the one thing is consistent is that there is no statute of limitations on murder. So if P. Diddy had actually killed this person or the person died as a result of their injuries, now J-Lo could be brought into the mix as a co-defendant because of the fact that the person has passed away. But if the person is alive, and maybe they had serious injuries or whatever the case may be, statute of limitations would run. And it is highly likely at this juncture that statute of limitations have expired. Therefore, she does not have any criminal liability. But the reputational damage might be a different story because now she's branding herself as something very different than who she was back then. Back then, she was very much Jenny from the block. She was, dating a variety of hip hop artists. She was very much in that world. Now she's married to Ben Affleck. She's trying to, portray herself in a different manner. So now her past is going to come back to haunt her. And we don't know what that's going to mean for her future in terms of movie deals, music deals, or anything like that. So I think for her, it might be more reputational damage than criminal liability.
It's probably the same story for Prince Harry, who was listed only once in Lil Rod's lawsuit. It's almost a throwaway line too. Here's what it says. It reads in part, quote, Mr. Combs was known for throwing the best parties. Affiliation with and or sponsorship of Mr. Combs' sex trafficking parties garnered legitimacy and access to celebrities such as famous athletes, political figures, artists, musicians, and international dignitaries like British royal Prince Harry. Why even name Prince Harry? There's no allegations against him or anything, but why bring him up?
I think it may have been a move to bring more credibility to the filing and say that, basically he being Diddy, was using his fame, fortune, and influence to insulate himself. So he was able to legitimize some of the activities he was doing by having these lavish parties, bringing all these A-list celebrities, but somewhere in a back room or somewhere in another wing, horrible things were happening. So the fact that Prince Harry was there does not necessarily mean he was participating in what was happening. And just because you were at a party doesn't mean you know what's happening in every inch of the house. I mean, if you think about it, if the party's being thrown in a mansion, there are various floors and wings. So it is completely possible that he was there and did not participate. Now, if you had said Prince Andrew, especially as a result of the allegations that came out in connection with the Epstein case, that they were close and that they traveled together, and there was a person that alleged that he had sexually assaulted her while she was underage, that would be a different story. But Prince Harry and the way that it was mentioned seemed to be very, again, just sort of trying to bring legitimacy and talk about these were the people that Diddy surrounded himself by to protect himself.
Also listed in the lawsuit, Brendan Paul, the man accused of being Diddy's drug mule. He made headlines this week when he was arrested at the Miami airport while trying to board Diddy's private jet. He was arrested and booked for cocaine and controlled substance possession. Bernarda explained this one.
So far, Brendan has only been arrested for possession of a controlled substance, and this is for the narcotics that they recovered, I believe, in one of his bags that was on the airplane where he was stopped in the airport, Miami airport, on Monday. So they haven't linked that to Puffy at all. As of now, it's just for the simple possession, which is still a felony. The question that I will have and I'm curious to see what will happen is that whether they're going to use those charges against Brendan to try to flip him, to try to get him to cooperate against any type of prosecution against Puffy or others.
So again, no criminal charges against Diddy, but some pretty serious allegations. To make sense of all this, I sat down with former Bad Boy artist Mark Curry, who's known Diddy for several decades.
A lot of people would know me from the song that Puff Daddy did called Bad Boy for Life.
Curry worked with Diddy on the famous song Bad Boy for Life that was released back in 2001, but his credits don't stop there.
A lot of people know me from that song, but I wrote a lot of songs for Puff, a lot of his singles, like I wrote the Godzilla song with Led Zeppelin, Robert Plant with him, Come With Me. I did a few songs for him on his album, the Puff Daddy and the Family album. I wrote a few of his songs on that album. I wrote for him on the Forever album. I worked with we did a song with This Is Not America on the Training Day soundtrack with was it Bon Jovi. Just things that I feel that my credits that I've accomplished in this life that I'm proud of.
Back in 2009, Mark came out with this book titled Dancing with the Devil, How Puff Burned the Bad Boys of Hip Hop.
Well, what made me want to write the book was really just having something to fall back on in case the music industry didn't work. So I was like, I have to create something with my mind. I have to be able to use something with my skills other than do music. I said, so instead of doing music and making songs that rhyme, why don't I just make a book that makes sense?
But he says it's not quite a tell-all.
Tell-all wouldn't really be like tell-all his business, but the tell-all would be like maybe talk about or branch on and discuss a little bit of his business tactics or antics, just doing business with him, or dealing with individuals who are in positions such as his position, and dealing with them and the difficulties you may run across or face.
So can you tell me about your relationship with him from way back in the day to now?
Business relationship. It was this figure. When I met him, I was ambitious. I was confident when I met him. I just knew that he was the person that I could work with to further my career, and I could better myself. I could feed my family. I can just have the life that I just wanted to work hard for. And that simple task turned into being a nightmare. And it was just something that I had to get over. It had a whole bunch of twists and turns, trials and tribulations, and all of those things came along with the ride. But I just had to find the strength within myself, and I had to find the talent and the love within myself to say, hey, Mark, if you love yourself, then who in the world could stand against you?
Mark explains his relationship with Diddy shifted when Diddy wasn't there for him during his time of need. What led up to your fallout with Puffy?
Just almost like a big you, little me type of situation where you're able to feed your family, but I'm having a hard time feeding mine. We work together. We're supposed to be brothers. Like if I need you, I would hope that you would be there for me as much as I'm there for you when you need me. So sometimes you'll find yourself being there for people when they actually wouldn't be there for you if the shoe was on the other foot. So I was like, hey man, it's a lot of me doing for you and not a lot of you doing for me. So I was like, you know what? A person who thinks like that really, to me, is a selfish person. I'm like, and it's not, I'm not going to sit here and argue or talk to you about your habits. I'm just going to, figure out a way to move. When it's almost like when you approach a mountain and you say, okay, I'm at a mountain, and you say, I got to get to the other side. And then most people say, well, I can't climb the mountain. And then they sitting there like, well, how am I going to get over? But nobody takes time to think about walking around it. It's a mountain that you approach in life that you got to walk around or climb it. So it's so many different ways to get to the other side, though. And that's just like what it's been like working with him. It's like approaching a dead end, like running into a wall. And you say, now what do we do? If everything we need to do says go forward, how do we do it? We say, okay, we got to move around and bust it down, break barriers, just those kind of things. That's what life's been.
While he may be looking ahead, Mark didn't shy away from discussing the past. He spoke candidly about that 1999 nightclub shooting where J-Lo allegedly carried Diddy's illegal weapon. Rapper Shine was ultimately arrested and served prison time for firing the gun.
I know that the incident that happened at Club New York it was with Puff and Shine, and J-Lo was there and Wolf was there. It was a very unfortunate situation because it was a female, I believe, that may have got shot or something like that during the situation, but it was not a good situation. And I don't say it was a payoff, but you say Shine went and did a long time in prison, and then when he came home from prison, they extradited him and made him go back to Belize. And he couldn't come back and put his foot on the United States soil again. And to me, I was like, why? Only thing, he didn't really do anything to really get to where he can't come back. And then when you broke down everything, it was his voice would have been too powerful to say the truth. So in order to hide the truth, let's hide the person that has the voice. So to me, it was like, yo, you're hiding the person with the voice because you don't want him to tell his truth. And that's that. So it's like, okay, for you to go over here and live, it was a time where I think they had gave him a record deal, and he was supposed to do an album, and we never heard an album from him. But to me, the money that they gave him to do the record deal, the way that it was given to him and how that process went was just kind of a way to give him some money to say, hey, you know what? Take care of yourself, live life. Here's something from someone. And that's how that one went.
Some people now are speculating that it was not Shine at all who pulled the trigger, that it was actually P. Diddy himself. What do you think about that?
Well, this is interesting. As I told someone, when you hear gunshots, the first thing you think to do is, well, there's two things you're going to think to do. And you're out in the crowd, you hear gunshots, you're going to close your eyes and you're going to duck, or you're going to drop to the floor. So if you hear gunshots and they're ringing out in a local place like that, you're not going to be looking for where the gunshots are coming from, the shots are coming from, and the bullet travels so fast that you probably won't see who has the gun because the bullet travels faster than almost the speed of sound. So it's like, okay, you're not going to be able to look at someone shoot you. So we can't say that if Shine said that it was different, then Shine probably wouldn't have went to prison for the amount of time that he went to prison. So if Shine went to prison and the United States judicial system already had concluded this case and this is what the crime and the punishment they felt need to be carried out for it, then that was a decision that was made by the judicial system and they made their decision. So what I have to say, opposed to what the law said, I'm gonna have to side with the law because the law has people who study law, and they know how to find those results. I cannot find those results.
Moving into present day, Mark had thoughts about other allegations Diddy is now up against, including sex trafficking.
Sex trafficking may be a little bit overboard. I mean, it's a little bit out there, because if you was to say a celebrity and you would look at a celebrity such as Puff Daddy, you wouldn't call it a sex trafficking thing. You would call it he's someone who's a John. That means he's probably the one that's paying to have these young ladies get dropped off to his house by someone who may have a slew of young ladies that are into that business. So when we look at sex trafficking, I don't know if a John could be charged with sex trafficking. And there's a difference between the John and the trafficker. So was he the John or was he the trafficker? That's going to be one of the questions, because it's going to be hard to say he's a sex trafficker, because I can't imagine him having to make a living off of having females sell, or let's say, in order to do something unwillingly for something, you have to have some kind of gain to it. So it's either you're making them a slave, and if he's making them a slave, then that's wrong. But if these females or whoever it may be are doing things and they're willingly doing the things that they're doing and they know what they're engaging in, then I think that these people should be responsible for their decision. And this is just a result of decisions sometimes people make. Sex trafficking is hard. Trafficking guns is another one. I can't see him having to sell guns. I don't know him for being a gun carrier. He doesn't have the need to carry a gun because he carries security. So what would he need a gun for if he has people that's around him that are paid and trained to carry guns? So then that's one that threw me for a loop.
As far as relations with any underage women, Mark says that's likely a misunderstanding.
He's going to the club and he's 52. Again, if he does an after party or if he's doing a concert, usually when you go to these concerts, there are young people at these concerts. They're 23, 21, sometimes not even 20, and they're lying to act like they're 21 to get there. So you say they're at these concerts, and then he says, okay, well, we're going to have an after party, or his sons might have a party for with their friends. So he does have kids their age that live with him. Just because some kids may show up to his house, underage females may show up to his house, how do we know they're not there for Christian? How do we know they're not there for his daughters? How do we know they're not there for Justin?
Some of the other allegations are that Puff Daddy actually assaulted some people, that he sexually assaulted them or forced them to have sex with other people. Does that sound like the person you know?
No, it doesn't sound like the person I know. It doesn't sound like the person I know. Does it sound like people that I know? It sounds like people that I know. But do I see the same characteristics in those people that I see in Puff? No, I don't see the same characteristics, because Puff doesn't have to force anyone to do anything, because it's enough people who would just do anything just to be associated with him. So to be affiliated with him. So his life is so easy. He doesn't have to force people to do anything around him. The only thing he has to do is watch the people that are around him and their intentions. Some people have some very ill intentions.
Mark believes such serious accusations can't be confirmed without asking some very important questions.
We're looking at force. Force is by pressure. Force is by trauma almost. It's almost by physical violence. So what kind of physical violence took place before the conjugal part of it? Were you handcuffed? Was you tied up? Did they take your clothes off of you? How did you get with your clothes off of you? Why was you there? Who dropped you off? Why is this the first time this happened? Second, third. Okay, after the first time, how come you didn't notify the police then? So what made you wait all of these many years to say this? Because even when I look at myself, I've had several relationships in my past, and not all of them has been pleasant and beautiful and all of those kind of nice words. Some of them been violent. I had a girlfriend who she was emotionally, actually mentally abusive. I had one that was physically abusive, and those were just relationships that I went through in my life. Am I going to be a person that's abusive if I'm in an abusive relationship with someone who's abusing me? it's hard to say that. It's hard to say who's the rabbit and who got the gun. You don't never know. So is the good spirit in this house? Probably not. Is there violence? Probably so. Can we avoid the violence? Probably so. Why do we get into violent situations? Because we don't know how to calm ourselves. We have fast tempers. We feel like we can get so. Is he that kind of person? Yes, he is. Is he controlling? Yes, he is. Will he put his hands on a female? Yes, he will. Would he put his hands on a male producer or anything? Yes, he will. I know those things about him.
Mark also commented on the federal investigations and raids at 2 of Diddy's homes. What are they going to find?
I saw them walk out with a box or something. And you know, usually when they have a warrant to search, they know exactly what they're looking for. So if they walked out with a box of something, they walked out with a box of things that they were probably looking for. So we just gonna have to wait until until they finally come forward and say, these are the things we found. And that's going to be interesting to know the things that they're looking for and the things that they found. What's really quite interesting, though, if you ask me, is the fact that when they were coming to serve those warrants at his locations, his homes, he was obviously tipped off and left. Doesn't that tell you a lot about our security? Like, just think about me. Think about how I feel. I say, okay, if they tip him off and let him know that they're coming to break in his house, you don't think that he has a lot of power to get information, to do things, make things? So that's the wicked part of things. So it's not even him. It's the fact that he knew that they were coming before they got there. As a tip-off. He might have got it from his lawyer.
Do you think that P. Diddy will be charged federally for any of the crimes?
Okay. I'm going to be honest with you. There may be some problems for him. But these problems that he's having, I don't believe that these problems are things that you can say that he kind of brought about himself. These problems are coming at him from a different angle. And it's something that he may have not done, or it's a situation where he may not have humbled himself, or he might have thought that money is so powerful and my money is so powerful that I can be disrespectful and walk over people and say anything I want. I can come into your company and tell y'all how to run it. I'm the most important asset at your company. I am the star of this. I'm the one that's helping you make this amount of money. And then you like, my brother, do you really tell me that you think that you can come in here and help me sell my brand that's already been selling for 400 years? And you want to tell me that you are the face of my brand? And yes, you know what? That's a real disrespectful approach towards business. So I think his business coup may not have been 100%, and he may have overused his power and his image, and now it is coming back on him to where now his image and his money doesn't mean much to people who would rather see him in these kind of situations.
As far as calling Brendan Paul Diddy's drug mule, Mark says that's a bit of a stretch, but he does say Diddy is known to use illegal drugs. His alleged drug mule was arrested for possession of controlled substances. Obviously, Diddy hasn't been charged in this, but is he someone who would have these controlled substances or illegal drugs?
Personal use, yes. For sale, no. Is Diddy selling drugs? No. If people would ask, they'd be like, why would he have to sell drugs? He don't have to sell drugs. Is he using drugs? Maybe. Does people around him use drugs? Maybe. People around me uses drugs. There's a whole bunch of people using drugs. So when we're calling him a mule is a big word. Like, we're putting big words on things that I think the words that we're using, the verbiage that we're using, we can probably use it as maybe, does he carry contraband, personal contraband for him? And do they have to travel from state to state? And you'd be like, well, yeah. So that doesn't make him a mule. That just makes him someone who's trafficking personal drugs for an entertainer. And so when we look at that and we look at how they're labeling this guy as a mule is a person that's moving masses amounts of drugs across lines, state lines, things like that. Would he have the need to have someone who's around him and the guy clearly looked like in the picture, he looked like he knew where to find drugs if you needed to have some. He looked like he was on what he knew how to find. So he just looked like a person that you can trust that can go and get you some drugs if you needed them.
You said you wouldn't consider P. Diddy a good person. Is that right?
What I'm saying as a good person, a good person is a big word to describe someone as. A good person is a big person. A good person is someone who's there. They know when they're there to help you. They're there for you even without you having to say something to a good person. They're there to help. They're there for support, morally, emotional, things like that. So we have empathy would be a good word to describe a person with empathy versus a person with no empathy. To me, he's a person with no empathy, and he doesn't feel as if he has to answer to anything in life because, the power of money sometimes make people they feel powerful because they are able and they have money. And that's why they say in God we trust, that's on the dollar bill. Sometimes that the only God that they trust is the dollar bill. And he's one of those kind of people. It's almost like a billionaire or a millionaire. He's a millionaire, but then he ran across some neighbors who are billionaires, and then now he's spending the rest of his life trying to be a billionaire. So yeah, it's like that. It's almost like a rat race. Never enough is enough. You can have $1 million and now you want 2 million. You can have 2 million, now you want 500 million. Then you want 1 billion. Then you want 2 billion. You just want to be the richest black man in music. You want to be Kanye West. You want to be Jay-Z. You want to be in competition with everybody. So that right there tends to make people a little stingy.
In the end, Mark says he doesn't hold anything against Diddy and even has a message for him.
Don't condemn a man, especially when a man is down. The only thing I can say is whenever we see someone that's down, the only thing we can do is just pray for that person and pray that that person finds the strength to find the answer. Because if you pray hard enough, there's always an answer. It's like I always say to Puff, especially Puff, if you hear me right now, the only thing you got to do is what we all had to do. You have to pray. You have to keep your faith. If you're not guilty, then know you're not guilty in your heart, and you live and you walk. And don't worry about what people are saying, or don't worry about Mark. Don't worry about my book. Don't worry about nothing, because I saw you on TV the other day on the net at the airport, confused. You had no one around you, and that was a moment that really touched me, because I said, no matter how mad I am at him, no matter how wrong I feel he's done me in life, I want to be strong enough to still be there for him and say, you know what, you done me wrong. Life is messed up, but brother, I'm still here for you, man. If I wrote you a song when you needed a song to have a hit, I'm still here to make another hit for you right now. It's called helping you, talking to you, giving you inspiration, helping you, brightening up your day, assuring you that, everything is going to be okay. See, he needs those kind of people around him. That's the kind of energy I think he needs. But does he have that energy is the question.
In response to the raids of Diddy's homes, his attorney released a statement on Tuesday reading, quote, "Yesterday, there was a gross overuse of military-level force as search warrants were executed at Mr. Combs's residences. There is no excuse for the excessive show of force and hostility exhibited by authorities or the way his children and employees were treated." As far as the allegations dropped in Lil Rod's lawsuit, Diddy's attorney Sean Hawley says, quote, "His reckless name-dropping about events that are pure fiction and simply did not happen is nothing more than a transparent attempt to garner headlines. We have overwhelming, indisputable proof that his claims are complete lies. Our attempts to share his proof with Mr. Jones's attorney, Tyrone Blackburn, have been ignored, as Mr. Blackburn refuses to return our calls. We will address these outlandish allegations in court and take all appropriate action against those who make them." Right now, P. Diddy does not face any criminal charges. As for Brendan Paul, his alleged drug mule, he's been released on $2,500 bail. Reporting for Law&Crime, I'm Sierra Gillespie.